You're listening to The Practicing Law Librarian. This limited series is part of PLI's Ever Current podcast, where we bring you insights and updates from legal thought leaders. Find additional episodes at pli.edu or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Karen Osterly. Welcome to the Practicing Law Librarian podcast, presented by PLI's Legal Information Services Group. This podcast brings you conversations with and for the law librarian community. As a practicing law librarian myself, I've been working in legal information services for 34 years, currently with PLI's Library Relations Group. Join us as we talk to Scott Bailey, the only law librarian we have found who took a traditional path into this field. A BS, an MLIS, and jobs at several law firms have brought him to Eversheds Sutherland, where he applies his out-of-the-box views on the most important elements in serving his patrons in innovative and creative ways. We want to know what you want to know, is his librarian's creed. There are several key values at Eversheds Sutherland, and Scott Bailey, Director of Research and Knowledge Services, is building a service that resonates with all of them: collaborative, creative, professional, inclusive, and open. As a champion of success through authentic intelligence and building knowledge community, Scott is one of those people who works collaboratively with a variety of professionals within and beyond the legal industry. He believes in creatively fostering situations where aligning the right people, data, and resources leads to multiplied value for everyone involved. To read his full bio, please see our podcast page. Welcome, Scott.
Thanks, Karen. It is great to be here with you.
Thank you. When I met him and knew him, he was Global Director of Research Services at Squire Patton Boggs. Before that, Squire Sanders. So that's where we met.
That's right. When we met, it was Squire Sanders and Dempsey for sure, right? 2004, right. Maybe, something like that.
That's right, on Pennsylvania Avenue. What Scott gave me as a bio, it says, there are 5 guiding values at Eversheds Sutherland, and Scott is building a service that resonates with all of them: collaborative, creative, professional, inclusive, and open. As a champion of success through authentic intelligence and building knowledge community, Scott is one of those people who works collaboratively with a variety of professionals within and beyond the legal industry. He believes in creatively fostering situations where aligning the right people, data, and resources leads to multiplied value for everyone involved. So that's pretty cool. That's not the kind of bio that I usually get. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure, glad to talk about it. I know that's pretty high level and theoretical, but I try to live that out. And I think our firm really does too. Those guiding values are part of the firm's mission and essentially to help their clients, their people, and community to thrive. And with that kind of as a guiding force, it's easy to build a team with those values in mind. And we have that on top of all of our roadmap correspondence, all of our strategic values are placed up there every day. And really, it's the network, especially in the research and knowledge services world, it's the network of resources and people that we're really working toward to achieve results. So it just seems like the ultimate aim is to build that network full of quality people like yourself and PLI and organizations that help build our collective knowledge and our ability to practice and help our clients.
Thank you. When I interviewed with PLI, this is mid-February 2022. I knew they were nonprofit. I knew Alexa, my boss, Alexa Robertson, whom you know, I think, but I didn't know that much about the company. So when I interviewed with Alan Cohen, who's our chief business officer, he said, well, we're nonprofit and our mission is to educate as many people as possible. And I was struck.
Simple message, yes.
I was struck and I was like, okay, I've been interviewing. I've been looking for a job 8 months and I was looking for the right place and this is it. And fortunately for me, they agreed. And so I've been on board a little over a year. But I know what you mean about that mission, about that larger vision of what we're here for.
Yes, and not just to answer questions, but to thrive. I love that idea of not just meeting the basic requirements, but helping our people, our clients, and our community to thrive and oriented around people. We have a slogan in the Research and Knowledge Services group, sort of a tagline underneath that is we want to know what you want to know. And I believe capitalized is you, because we want everybody to know that individualized service that extends to our clients and our internal clients as well, and to our network of colleagues. We can't just think about just the legal industry. The world is too connected beyond that to just focus on legal resources or business resources in a narrow way, but think about the network beyond that and connect all the possible knowledge points in that conversation.
Exactly. And you're feeding exactly into the point of this podcast. I mean, you read the stuff I sent you. They talked to me about starting this podcast or working on this podcast, began talking about it in November. And she said, think about a vision statement, think about a mission. And I was like, okay, librarians who have all this specialized knowledge, all this hard-won learning that we've been collecting for 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, I think that we should capture that. I think we should capture that and share it to strengthen the community. So I'm delighted that we're so aligned, and they went for it. So that's exciting. So that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. One more person today. So talk to me about how you became a law librarian. I mean, you got your master's in library science right after you got your BA, which is sort of unusual in this profession. So tell me how that came about.
Yes, I think as an English major, I loved the English language and communication around the written word. And of course, when you graduate with a BA in English, you almost need to have graduate school, right? I mean, what else are we going to be able to do? And so my parents were both educators. And my father was actually a librarian, and he had a library minor when such a thing was possible at Concord College in West Virginia. And that was sort of an interesting inspiration for me. But in talking to my parents about what am I going to do next, I was interested in law school, and I had applied to some law schools, and I was thinking, is this something I really need to do, or is this something that I want to do for the cost and time commitment involved? And I went to the University of Tennessee because they had a academic common market arrangement with Virginia. So I could go for in-state rates. And I got a great opportunity with Dr. Jose Marie Griffiths, who is the vice chancellor of the University at Tennessee there in Knoxville, their largest campus, to basically be her TA, and had the opportunity to set up an independent study with the law school to see if I really wanted to go there.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was very cool. So I was able to say, okay, I'm working for Kelly Brown, who I would like to give a shout out to Kelly Brown at the University of Tennessee. Formerly, she's no longer there, but was a great influence as a research librarian and part of the faculty and head of instruction. She really showed me that you could do a lot at not just being a librarian, but the idea of the research component of the legal practice was critical. And I discovered a whole new field that I didn't realize even existed when I went to library school, essentially, that the academic, government, corporate, the law firm world, public, absolutely, all the different facets of law librarianship were there. So I said, I'm going to focus more on this, and I don't have to worry about law school because this is the part that I really love. I love working with the students, and I loved thinking about their research problems and making sure the Post-its were out of the books so that nobody went and followed somebody's research assignment and things. But yeah, I had a blast doing that and really looked forward to my first job in Chattanooga as a law librarian, the first professional law librarian, even though I was just graduated as a master's candidate right after that, and was able to merge two little firm collections. So, and I shouldn't say two little firm collections, because relative to Chattanooga, they were I think the second largest law library in Chattanooga was formed by the merger of Chambliss and Bonner and Stoffel in the 90s. So it was fun time. And that gave me the basic, even though we were basically doing print combinations at the time in the same building. They had they were fortunate enough to have two law firms in the same building, so we didn't have to move too far. But the idea of combining those started the whole idea of wanting to learn how people work together to form a greater solution as a combined firm, and combining their resources was a big part of that.
And you've stayed with law firms ever since then?
Yes. That was such a great experience connecting those people with their knowledge resources and working with people like yourself as also as people. I met you originally when you were at Matthew Bender, right?
Right.
And part
Yes.
of the Lexus world, even before it maybe was purchased by Lexus, right? So the idea of the independent nature of working with vendors and to find the right solution and making those great contacts and connections through the years has been fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
it's a wonderful community.
yeah, it's
And there's lots of us that move back and forth across. Well, for example, you have several librarians who used to be Lexus reps whom I worked with. So there's lots of crossing back and forth, whether you're a vendor or you're a librarian. And a librarian. So that's been interesting.
That's right.
And they're doing great. I can't believe Diane's been there you've been there 4 years too. It's astonishing to me.
Yeah, Diane
was so fast.
Yeah, that's right. Diane Chambers, my first hire when I was building that team up in 2019. So, of course, immediately facing tremendous challenges that we could have never anticipated, and at the change from Squire, where I'd been for 15 years, to Eversheds Sutherland. The idea that suddenly I went from sketching out the diagram of our new research center, our physical library space, prior to COVID. I mean, literally 3 months before, I was in the architect's office talking about how we were going to design this space.
Right.
And then it came to fruition, and we couldn't occupy it. It was incredible timing, and we learned so much through that.
We did. And one of the main things we learned is you can work from home and you can still serve all your clients, internal and external, and get them everything they need practically without needing to go in. We go in at PLI, we go in at least 1 day a week. And for our group, it's Mondays. And some people are in 2, 3, 4, 5 days a week. It just depends. What's a common myth about your job? When you say you're a law librarian, what do people respond if they're not in the community already?
Yeah, if they're not in the community already, the first thing is probably just astonishment, or the question of, I didn't know that existed. Well, what is that? And maybe they also think about a traditional print library environment. Sometimes people will say the old joke about shushing, which did happen with the library team at Tennessee as a student. I happened to be fortunate enough to be there when Peyton Manning was a student, and he was throwing football at the University of Tennessee. And we had a situation where one of the librarians in my library school program actually got up to shush our group when he was throwing the football. So it's not entirely a stereotype. It can happen with library students and librarians. You can shush people. But I think that's the common, maybe the most common one that people could relate to, is that we're quiet, that we're introverted, and that we're not proactive with our services, and we don't make a wave in the organization. And we try to do the opposite. We try to distribute our knowledge, distribute and deliver our services. So the idea that somebody could be a librarian and as an archivist, maybe, no disrespect to my archivist colleagues, but somebody who maybe is more in charge of maintaining a collection rather than delivering the services and the collection. So we try to emphasize service. And so when I talk to somebody on a plane who's never heard of it before, or somebody just in casual conversation, I usually talk about technology and something they may have heard of recently, that for instance, of course, the wave of AI and ChatGPT and the tremendous amount of news that's been generated since November of 2022 on that topic. That's typically what I'll try to engage them with and say, how do we react to something like that as a law firm, as a global law firm? Because you immediately go to describe the organization that you work for and with over 6,000 people globally. Eversheds Sutherland is a global presence and a top 20 law firm with global presence. So to even be able to think about how you would handle that organization's questions with the complexity and thousands of clients, you gotta bring them down to something they can relate to as typically a consumer or an individual of, say, something like ChatGPT services, or when they Google something, how do you go about finding things? Because we're all researchers, right? Everybody in their individual life. So trying to relate to, we help them find things. We help that network of 6,000 human beings with these complex professional questions in multiple languages. find what they're looking for at this
Yep.
advanced level, right? So this is a whole different level of research.
Yes. And what do you think that ChatGPT and further use of AI, how do you think that's going to affect librarians?
I think that with this technology, we should emphasize the innovation and possibility of it. There's a lot of these questions in early phases about what it can do. And some people have speculated, oh, that's the end of certain professions like librarianship, or the billable hour will go away, or this may affect hiring practices for attorneys or support staff. But I think that rather than being alarmist, I think we have to realize that we are the leaders of this technology. This is something that can help us be more insightful, maybe more quickly, maybe gather more insight more quickly and also more deeply, and maybe new ideas that will come from it. And so far in this early stage, we've seen that results we get from ChatGPT and ChatGPT 4 related technologies, we are actually seeing that it takes more to check it, right? So we have to double check it. We have to be cautious and be cautiously optimistic, but look at these things from our client's perspective and make sure that we're delivering the best services for them, and making sure their data is secure when we're dealing with these services, and making sure that we've gone through the proper security review before we employ something like this, and make sure it's the best thing for them to be investigating these things too. But there are times in applications, like even for this interview, I'm reminded of things like we can go to ChatGPT and ask it for what are a dozen questions you would ask a typical law librarian, right? And it will generate pretty decent questions, right? Ones that are not too bad, but a little bit of editing on our part, and we have something even more powerful. And of course, we can customize it to given different clients and industries, to be able to make sure that they have a heightened sense of awareness of what they're dealing with in their own sectors and industries. So I feel like it's a powerful tool, and I can't wait to see what the next stage will bring. And certainly the iteration of research with these tools, say for instance a chatbot that's related to it, the way that you can adjust on the fly is very similar to what we would classically call a reference interview, right?
Right.
We're going back to it and we're saying, let's refine that. Let's make it for this industry or that, for that particular jurisdiction. How would it be affected? And so I can see this really guiding us through some really interesting research processes, and us being able to emulate our own processes in a more customizable version of this, which I'm looking forward to being a part of that and helping to design something that's effective and communicative for the whole group.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it's going to be revolutionary, and I can't imagine how it's going to play out, but I can't wait to see.
Yes.
Yes. But you spoke just now about creating something. Do you want to talk about tools that you've created for your librarian colleagues, either at Eversheds or Squire, or at any point, things that you've already created? Because I know that you do a lot of that.
Absolutely. Yes. We try to be an idea skunkworks, or if you will, to try to come up with great ideas, the Willy Wonkas of the organization. In a lot of ways, there are certain tools that we've had some publicity around. For instance, Spoliation Scientist in 2021 was a really great partnership with our Fast Case friends, where we found a data visualization tool through them, and using their data, we crafted a customized database that basically would visualize the hot spots for spoliation rulings across the US. In most jurisdictions, you'd be able to basically see a visualization of, for those of you who don't know, spoliation of evidence is destruction of evidence, where a ruling has been either adverse to a client, where basically spoliation was found, where they destroyed evidence, there was an adverse ruling. So basically this would track those rulings and across the country, and you'd be able to see it on a map. And that's extremely good. The visualization component, when you're communicating with clients, of course,
It's
to be able to
huge.
see the heat map, right, of
Yep.
where this is. So it won an award from Legal Week for Collaborative Group of the Year, I believe, 2021 for litigation technology. And so
Right.
that was
Right.
fantastic. And we really enjoyed communicating that too to colleagues and others, because it was an example of a good idea that helps clients communicate with us and build relationships. And they knew we could do that and take it to other topics as well.
Very cool. We're also partners with Fastcase on our case links. And you probably know that.
Very cool. I wasn't sure about that. That's cool. Good to
Um,
know.
Can you talk about, just since we're on that topic and on that angle of things, can you talk about how you guys use PLI? I mean, you're big PLI customers.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, it's a key part of our education efforts across the firm. So we work very closely with the CLE manager at the firm, and she's been a big fan of PLI for many years. And we work together to bring forth all kinds of different CLE requirements and some things that are not CLE required. And of course, for the research materials, they're second to none in the way that they're organized and how you can access them online. And they are key part of our research projects as well. So not
Thank
just
you.
for that one-time education where you've got somebody in a course needs to fulfill a CLE requirement, but we would certainly reach out to PLI for looking into the treatises and the other quality products that you have. So
Thank you.
we've been working together
Thank you.
for years.
Yes, and
All three firms. All four
right,
firms.
exactly. All your firms.
Yeah, all our firms have used PLI resources.
Yeah, our partnership with Fastcase, just to mention that, because we're a secondary source provider, we don't do the primary sources because you can get theirs other places. But a lot of our footnotes, a lot of our treatises are secondary sources, cite cases. And so when you click on one of those, it links to Fastcase. It opens it up in Fastcase.
Yeah.
So that's a lovely partnership that we've had with them for years.
That's excellent.
Did you know Ed and Phil when they were at Covington and Burling before they began Fastcase? Because they were in your building.
Yes,
Covington,
they were.
Covington was in the same
1201.
building.
Yes, Pennsylvania Avenue. I did not know them back then, but shortly afterward. And I remember that amazing, I believe it was a Forbes article that had the two of them basically looking like they just escaped the law firm with their briefcases in the air or something like that. And saying they found a better way. And I think that's an amazing partnership there between a physicist and a marketing lawyer that together they're the ideal pair to even take their company to different heights. Now they have an international combination with VLEX. So
Exactly.
interesting to see what they do with that, and especially with international docket possibilities, because they also have the docket alarm resource that has been useful as well, and has some AI plans as well to be able to structure. If you've probably heard one of Damian Reel's talks about the potential of docket alarm in the AI with the AI power, because essentially you can even find from a docket the counter arguments maybe that you might apply, or some suggestions about.
It's, I think, an amazing time in legal research. I did not read that particular article, but it's always interesting to me. They were at CMB, Covington and Burling, when you were in that building, and I used to go in that building. Covington was a client. You guys were a client. It's just really cool.
It is cool. The birthplace of all of that. They were researching, and they said there has to be a better way, right? They were frustrated associate researchers and looking to build something better.
Exactly. And came up with something. What are some of the most important lessons that you've learned over the course of your career? Those key learnings that I was talking about earlier.
Wow. Yeah, I have to. This is my main theme about the whole organization and the whole career has been collaboration and teamwork and team members, building teams, finding the right resources and keeping those relationships. We're a very collaborative community, as we mentioned earlier, in a lot of ways distinct from the partnership itself in a different way. Law firms are not as collaborative, of course, in their daily life with each other as the research teams typically are with each other. So because of course they could be in adversarial situations. So the idea that we as the research teams basically are able to build this community together that even transcends outside our organizations, and learn more about things both from the providers like the ones we're talking about here today and PLI, and the New York Law Institute, where, of course, you also and I work closely together. These are great organizations that help us build our network. So those have been the biggest things I've learned have been from colleagues in these fields, mentors like Jean O'Grady and her amazing blog about Do We Be Strategic. It's fantastic. And that's based on the core idea of librarianship. Are we strategic? And is there a tie-in to the old days of the Dewey Decimal System? I love her title even because it evokes all those questions of where we've been and where we're going. And connecting is now not just about those rigid taxonomies maybe of the past, but these new dynamic ones. What Damien's doing with Sally right now is a really interesting idea, building taxonomies across the legal industry so that we can communicate more clearly. Those kinds of things, building metrics around different industries and codes that are in the Sally database will maybe help us all to get more standardized communication and metrics around the work that we do. So excited about that as well. I don't know, that was kind of a rambling answer to what are my greatest lessons. I think it's always been from people and other networked individuals in our industry and outside of our industry. That's why I put that in the bio, because it's really like we can't really limit ourselves to thinking about just the legal industry, obviously, to serve our clients that are in a variety of industries and fields. We have to learn about all kinds of aspects of knowledge and technology that are outside of out of our smaller world. So that's another big lesson. And also change management. I mean, to reflect back on what happened, obviously, in 2020 and 2019, and the idea that change management is probably one of the number one things we look for in building a team. That new librarians or people who are maybe not librarians or from different industries. My team has got a really cool, diverse group of skills and backgrounds, including, as Karen, the idea of people coming from journalism. But in addition to that, we'll have people who come from entirely different industries and may not have traditional library education, but have a tremendous amount of insight and skills to complement the team, right? Like the old A-team example of everybody having a different specialty. Those are the best types of teams, right? That there's a tremendous amount of practice alignment and things that develop naturally out of these different diverse skill sets, and the resources that we gather are based on the client needs and the firm needs, and they change over time. So you have to have a high capacity for change management and basically a plan for that, because you have to plan for change.
Right. And you've done your recruiting that way. You haven't just looked for people that have a strict librarian history. You've looked for people with skills and particular interests and particular areas of knowledge. And it makes your team more diverse. And PLI's done this too. We've got people from all kinds of different backgrounds. It's really interesting that way. And that's actually been one of the biggest learnings through this podcast beginning for me, talking to people. And I ask them, how did you get to librarianship? How did you become a law librarian? You're the only person so far that went to undergrad, went to library school, and has been with law firms the whole time. Other people have stumbled into it. I came the vendor route. But I do have to tell you, I have your English degree beat. I have a bachelor's in philosophy.
Okay.
Because I knew I was going to go to grad school. It almost doesn't matter what you major in as a 22-year-old or 23-year-old. And I didn't go to law school. I think about it now. Matthew Bender would have been happy to pay for me to go to law school. It never crossed my mind. I went to business school first, and then I went to Matthew Bender. And then 25 years later, I got another master's in library science. But you're the only person who took the regular route. And yet you're one of the most open-minded and creative of the library directors that I know.
Well, thank you. That's a high compliment. I often make the analogy to improv, and that's related to that change management. I was a drama kid in high school, and the idea of not knowing what's next, it's kind of like we're all in sales to some degree, right? Of promoting ourselves, but we're also a bit of the performance of sales, and the idea of what's thrown at you in improv has always fascinated me. The idea of we're not sure what the next question is going to be. We've talked about reference interviews and things like that. But the idea of somebody, the next question is not necessarily predictable. And to be able to roll with that and to use your improvisational skills as a researcher, I think that's a key part of it. And I think that's what fascinated me about it really early. It's like you never knew who was going to come up to that reference desk and what they were going to say. And it's kind of this
Right.
network of faces, right? You don't necessarily think about the spines of the books, right? When you're dealing with research questions, like who else would know this?
Right.
Who else? Where else would who should I talk to? It could be an insurance library, like we've talked about, or you had to deal with that with the New York Law Institute. We had a tremendous
We did.
network, right? And PLI too, tremendous network of people to draw from, and that's just as important, of course, or more important than knowing what database to look in or which vertical file to check.
Right. Or how to phrase the search. It's more than that. It's more
Yes,
than
it's
that.
more than that, right?
Yep. So I was going to ask you what you think are the most important attributes for a librarian to have. But before I ask that, what do you look for when you're hiring somebody, when you're interviewing people, when you have an opening? What do you look for in terms of attributes or in terms of skills or interests?
I think that change management is very much top of the list. Open-mindedness, certainly creativity that you mentioned. The idea of technology skills, of course, is always in demand. Somebody can clearly distinguish themselves if they come in with a knowledge of the platforms we use, but also maybe more recently, the idea of coding, bringing them together with, especially with the offerings that API technology presents. The
Right.
idea of how do you combine these data streams to have a customizable newsletter for someone or a business background report that's targeted, customized to our firm? Do you have Python coding skills, so, as an example? Yeah, I would look for technology skills, but also the ability, of course, to collaborate and deal with different variety of questions, deal with people primarily, and their needs, and to maybe not necessarily stop at the first question, but turn the questions back around to them and make sure that you thoroughly understand the problem before you start at it, right? And not make as many assumptions
Right.
about something. Be open with that and creative about solutions.
So you've sort of answered both. I was going to say, what's the most important personality trait or strength someone would need to be successful in your job? And you've gone over some of them: open mindedness, creativity, coding background never hurts.
Yes, yes. So I
Um,
certainly don't have it. So any of that technical, I've always been in awe of and respectful of my IT colleagues, because without working with them and having what I've been thinking about lately is having hybrid roles. We have a new director of legal technology who's been fantastic to get to know. She came from another firm, and while we're giving her the tour of the new firm and basically identifying the top things that we're going to try to tackle together, it seems natural to think about, are there roles that are IT and research hybrid or knowledge hybrid that we could share? Are there resources that we could connect rather than think about them as separate departments? Because there's so much overlap in serving the firm and bringing and serving the clients and bringing solutions to them as we develop things like exfoliation scientists and other tools that are customized to the client base directly. That's going to be a big part of our website going forward globally, is how we deliver client tools and things to make their lives easier. It's going to require that synthesis of all departments and having those common points of resource, essentially, with maybe people who report to more than one department or are not as rigidly within
signed.
traditional law firm structure.
Right. Very interesting. And I think the AI, the chat GPT, all those kind of factors, I think are going to play into that more complex reporting structure as a very basic requirement, more overlap.
That's right.
What do you wish you had known? What do you wish somebody had told you when you started out?
Maybe that I should learn coding, right? Maybe that I should have been more technologically savvy. I think that would have helped. Also, the idea of how not to think about things as a legal problem sometimes, but to also think about the business of law. And then building the firm resources requires understanding, of course, of the internal operations of the firm, what the firm's objectives and roadmaps are. But that's kind of, it's almost like something I would rather find out than have somebody tell me about in advance, because that process is how you learn, right? So learning how
Discovering
to
it.
build teams and finding the right people who need to buy in and invest in and champion your ideas or turn them back. Not every idea is a good idea, and things that don't fit at the time. You got to be able to take that and adapt and maybe throw it away and go down a different road, to be resilient in that way. Because again, you never know, that improv part, you never know what's going to hit you next. We can do horizon scanning, and we can try to see what's next. It's certainly a chatbot interaction with an AI assistant that pointed to database would be a great thing. We do a hackathon now as part of our firm every Techtober. Every October we have Techtober, and ideas come across the pond and across the world on what's next. And those kinds of suggestions are certainly prominent these days about, will there be an agent for our team that will help you with some initial questions before you get to talk to the actual researcher that's assigned for it? Are there steps that can be taken 24 hours a day across the world to deliver services more quickly to clients and get started on your project sooner and with more accuracy than we would have individually or while we're asleep?
Is there advice you would give to someone who's starting library school this fall?
It might be similar to the technology advice. Maybe not just focus on traditional library school classes. Now, I've been out of that world for a long time, but I think I had a great conversation with Mike Vanderheyden recently, who was at Yale Law School, and we were talking about forming a group, especially in practice, that is with the academics in mind, so that any incoming law student or library student would probably have the same mindset of how do you set up future professionals for success. And I think talking to people, of course, and getting a variety of internships if possible. We just had our first interns over the past couple of summers in research. And, why it would have taken 20 or 30 years for us to figure out that basically the summer associate model could also be applied to the business sides of law firms. We're calling business professionals instead of course, the past would have been non-lawyers or some type of support staff language. But the idea of somebody who's practicing alongside the practices and supporting the practices in a law firm could also experience internship opportunities, whether they're law students or library students or in other masters, like you were talking about with business or other backgrounds. We have somebody from the banking environment in our research team, because the tremendous understanding of how to read a balance sheet or whatever they bring to the table might be extremely valuable to the firm. Any analytical work that they might do around a business. So I would say take courses outside of that, and meet people in the industries that you're interested in, and in whether it's industry or government or any other type of environment. Think about how those kinds of principles could be applied to it. May not be legal, but it may be another industry that you'd want to investigate. And analytical skills are highly prized, and to be able to package and think about the different industries and different opportunities down the road is a key skill. So I wouldn't think about it just as a single program, but as one that might require investigation outside of that industry or that particular education.
Oh, that's brilliant. And these, I don't want to call it your library team. What do you call your team?
That's cool. We call it RKS, the quick abbreviation of Research Knowledge Services. We've even had custom cookies made with RKS on it because it doesn't exactly roll off the tongue. But the idea of, I call them the super searchers in some of my communication, because that's what we're all doing, right? We're really looking for things, whether you're on the administrative side of it and you're building resources, you're thinking about the user and being able to help them service themselves a lot more too. We're not pretending that we're anywhere close to the 10 people who answer the questions for 6,000 people. It's more of the idea of how can we guide someone into their own knowledge journey and make sure that they get to the right solutions for the client. And if that means self-service portals on resources, signing themselves up for things, single sign-on, aggregating resources, custom newsletters that they can design themselves. Education is a huge part of that. And I know PLI is highly involved in that, but the idea that we engage our users, educate them to help themselves to a greater degree, because of course we have finite resources and only 10 of us. And hopefully we can use technology to spread our knowledge throughout the firm so that people have a baseline of understanding about how to solve their own research problems.
Right. About where to go, where to get started, and how to do it.
Exactly.
What else? I want to be aware of your time constraints. What else have I not asked you? Anything else you want to talk about, or something else I could have asked that didn't think of?
Well, let me think about that. We had started talking about the new workplace model and the return to office 3 days a week or 1 day, multi-hybrid environment, whether it's 1 day or 3 days or 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
I do like that we are in a multi-work environment firm and that there are scalable solutions for everybody. That the idea that it may take an hour or two in a lot of major cities to have a commute to your office. The idea that, where it makes sense, some people can choose to stay at home certain days. I think that makes a lot of sense. And it has really amplified our services. Like, I feel like since we've been in that kind of a model, we've been busier than ever before.
Right.
And we're getting to know our customers more than we ever had before, because with that, the anticipation of different models of communication and talking, access to people has actually improved, because you may meet them in the break room, which happened to me recently in the Atlanta office. I had a great conversation with a partner that I didn't know was going to happen about a problem she was encountering, versus talking to somebody on the fly, also on Teams. These are great things that have enhanced our understanding. So we're trying to build persona models, much like a business would, right, around our customers, so that thinking like a business, we're mapping the different interactions we have with our internal colleagues and people who are asking us questions. And so we have an understanding of what they're looking for. We have an intake knowledge form that basically says, what are the things that you're following? Let's not think about the resources or typical questions you might have when somebody starts at a firm. What tools do you like to use? But rather think about them. What are you trying to learn? Now let's get to the end point and say, please give us a list of 20 companies you might be following, regulatory things you might be interested in, which clients, which phenomena, and what are triggers for business for you? What are you looking for? What type of regulation are you seeing on the horizon that you want to be alerted to? So you can use all of those resources, particularly with the kind of the disaggregated concept of APIs and other options that are available to you, to make a custom knowledge solution for that person when you meet them. And then you can amend it. It doesn't stick there in stone. You have
it's not static
time with them. With the rest of the time, you can ask them, well, you want to add this to your profile. So we have more of a sense of who we're following, and that builds trust and communication. When you find that jewel, that one of my favorite feelings is when you send somebody something that they didn't know about that really changed their day and made their practice more successful. That's the best thing. That kind of, it's a combination of serendipity and planning and awareness of what they really want to know. Tying back into our tagline about we want to know what you want to know. Or we've even done a video commercial like a news team where we point to the camera and everything. We want to know what you want to know.
Right.
A little bit of Anchorman situation there to have a tagline. But yes, that's ultimately something we've enhanced our understanding of our colleagues and our users, basically from all those different technology options that and different workplace environments that they have and that our clients have.
That is fabulous. That's it right there. That's the what's the term? The money shot. But what's the verbal term for that? Anyway, that was wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was a pleasure.
Let me ask you, what are you reading these days, either for work or for pleasure?
Yes, I have been reading. I think his name is, gosh, what is his last name? But it's To Wake the Sleeping Self. It's a very cool. Have you heard of this? It's a guy who cycles from Oregon to Patagonia.
Wow.
And is not a cyclist. And that's what appealed to me quite a bit about it. This is like somebody who hadn't had any experience and decided to jump into this journey. As I recently went on a trip to Southeast Asia and cycled from Cambodia to Vietnam. So it was about 300 miles. And I am not a cyclist, but my wife is, right? And so the idea, my partner said, you know what? We should probably do this trip just to see if we can do it. And then the challenge of it, just culturally and just learning so much, but also physically for me, because I'd never done it before. And so it appealed to me that this person had never really been a cyclist, but his parents had written books about walking across the country.
Okay.
And so I was like, oh, this is interesting. I haven't finished it yet, but they're in Central America and having a great time.
Okay. To Wake the Sleeping Self.
Yeah.
Other books on your list or your night table?
Whoa. Let's see.
Or books you would recommend. I'm hoping for both.
Oh, okay. Well, I would definitely recommend for this topic, Library in the Digital Age, that book that we did with Alyssa Krosky and the New York Law Institute.
Yes.
But others that have a connection with the field, I haven't really read a book recently.
Or personally, just something else you would recommend. Somebody I spoke with last week said he was rereading books from high school, the classics from high school. He said Steinbeck read now has very different meanings than when you were 17.
That's interesting.
So just a thought. Wonder if there's anything like that.
That's
like I try to read Mockingbird every couple of years.
Oh, nice. That's
if there's
very
anything
cool.
like that. Anything like that you recommend?
I have been actually working on, let's see. I have been using, let me think about this. What have I actually been using that was a book or resource that I can cite to? Probably have to clean this part up. But I'm a little embarrassed that I don't have a go-to.
No, it's okay.
These days. I feel like, for fun.
You know what? It's okay. If you want to send me some in a couple of days.
Sure.
A couple of titles.
Yeah. I'd be glad.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Yep. Like I always have to screen through my phone to say, what have I been reading? Because I don't think of them by name. I
read a lot of car magazines, and I'm trying not to embarrass myself. I love references about cars, and so I've been looking at that. I had a couple of old Corvettes that I was working on, so I was doing. It's To Shake the Sleeping Self. Here we go. So we can focus on this one. Jedediah Jenkins.
Okay.
Really pretty awesome.
A very nice author name too.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, and I want to read more about his parents and their walk across the country. That'd be fascinating. Okay. I'm also looking at the only other book on my desk was about breathing techniques and speaking engagements and things like that. So it's called the Anxiety and Phobia Workbook, which I could also recommend so far. Because you can jump right to the challenge you might have. Especially, we got to think about mental health these days with people working in the various environments and with the challenges they face. And so that probably is a good one to mention as well.
Excellent. I just read yesterday something called The Holdout. PLI has a book group, and they're discussing it next week. And so I got it out of the library because it wasn't available as an ebook, and read that yesterday. About a jury that was deadlocked. She was the only one, and she got everybody to come around to her way of thinking, and they acquitted this guy. And then it's sort of what happens 10 years later when they find out the rest of the story. Anyway, it was a terrific book called The Holdout.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So like the hung jury, right? The person who...
But it's kind of like 12 Angry Men updated. But it's anyways terrific because it was much more complex than just that.
That is one thing we didn't really touch on was the pro bono aspect of what we can do. What we've seen recently with law firm collaborations like the Anti-Racism Alliance with law firms and the other components of that we're part of pro bono initiatives too, which again, the person on the plane may not know that, but the research team helps support a lot of pro bono efforts.
Right. And you probably know we're big in that too. We've got the DEI group, and you've met our president, I think. Sharon's terrific.
Sharon's awesome.
I could listen to you for hours, and hopefully we can continue this another time. But thank you. Thank you very much for joining us today and for sharing such interesting stuff.
Thanks for listening to The Practicing Law Librarian, part of PLI's Ever Current podcast. Be sure to subscribe and listen to our latest episodes wherever you listen to podcasts. And to learn more about the Practicing Law Institute, please visit pli.edu. To learn more about PLI Plus, which provides electronic access to the full collection of PLI Press publications, and schedule a demo with a member of our team, please visit pli.edu/plus. Please note that the views and opinions expressed during this podcast represent those of the individuals being interviewed and not necessarily those of PLI.